We should be live. Let's wait a second, see if any people are there to say hello and confirm that we are live. And it seems like we are. Hello, I'm What's Therapy. I'm here with Gavin Matts. What's up,
Hello.
Gavin?
Hi. Nothing. Just here on the live stream.
Nice. We are here on the live stream. We're doing a live chat. We're going to talk about comedy. Gavin's got a new special coming out, a new comedy special. You know it's
Yeah.
special. That's why they call it a
Yeah.
special.
I'm not even new, just like the first and maybe last.
I
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, yeah, because there's a comment in the special where you say, uh, I lost my grandparents when I was young. A lot of people lost their grandparents last year, and I was like, oh, so this is from like 2021 or 2022, or when did you record?
Yeah. Yeah. It's taped in May 2022. So it's been like I guess like a year and a half of it kind of being on the shelf.
Okay, and I'll try not to do too many of your bits back to you verbally.
No, that's okay. I mean, it is good to establish. I mean, like that was a very good joke. Like I felt like at the time, I mean, kind of rude and but it yeah, now I was like that is kind of the only thing I think in the entire thing that's dated.
Well, fair enough. Yeah, maybe that was the only thing where I actually got any sense of when it was. And I mean, I and definitely don't didn't find it rude. And one thing I'll bring up a few more times is the way you definitely make it so I laugh at things. I don't know how many people could make it so I laugh at, which is
Oh, good.
yeah, like a really it's a real testament to your unique approach to comedy. And I definitely have some examples to that. But before we get to that, let me test the audio really quick. Oh yeah, we're sounding good. So it's first and maybe last. The special opens with you saying how you hate doing stand-up comedy. So that makes me think about that. How serious are you when you say that, and when you say it's maybe your last? Like, because if you're serious, fair enough. I'm just curious. Yeah.
I mean, I have said that joke, I did
Mm-hmm.
say that joke a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
So and obviously to say a thing a lot of times you have to continually be doing it as like, stand up work. So I don't know. Sometimes I mean it, sometimes I don't. I think it started as like a funny thing to say during like the middle of a set when it's not going well or something happens that just dealing with people, a general crowd, where it then makes you kind of not want to be there, and then you just say you hate the thing instead of the people around it. But I don't know. I thought it was a funny way to open, and I there are parts of stand up that I hate, and I like doing it, but my friend Nick Nemiroff, he had a great kind of like stand-up album where he said the pursuit of comedy has ruined my life.
I
That
listened to
was the name
that
of his.
and I loved it.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and I just think it's just like, I feel like him and I thought the same on kind of like aspects of comedy where you very much love comedy, but I just think that sometimes it can kind of wear you down. And that's what I kind of meant in the opening of like it was kind of the first time I had like toured or gone anywhere
Hmm.
like for comedy, and I did like 56 cities, and not in like a cool way, like not all like clubs. And so just being in Kentucky for like 6 days is just kind of uh it feels like something people did in the like 60s or 70s. So
It's not long enough. You'd like to be in Kentucky for a lot longer, is what you're saying.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. Yeah, yeah, it's
And
so beautiful.
so, what made you put that joke at the beginning, at the very beginning, for this special? Like, I guess I'm curious because it's interesting that you used to do it more in the middle. Was there anything in particular that? Because it is a perfect opening too, because you're talking about what you're doing and it like kind of pulls you in.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think just that. I think it flowed really well into like how I began to like try to structure the hour at that time, you
Hmm.
know. Um it it kind of is personal, and then it's like a personal thought that I have just about like my life in general, and then it goes into all things in it. So I just
Right.
felt like it was a good opening. I mean, there's nothing more really to it. I mean, I could
No.
be like I could pick it apart, but I could also be like, I think it was just a good opening, you
Yeah,
know?
fair enough. No, it definitely is, and I yeah, I see what you mean that it goes into stuff that comes up later, and people will have to experience the special for themselves to fully get that. It's out next week, right? Is it on Friday the 27th, October 27th?
Yeah, Friday the
Yeah.
27th, it'll be on All Things Comedy's YouTube page, so it'll be free. You know, the
Hell yeah.
streamers were gonna buy it, but I was like, no, there's a huge labor movement in this
Yeah.
country, and I want to give people stuff for free and make no money.
That's what we love about you, Gavin. Yeah, it's for the people. No, I mean it's great.
Yeah.
It's a huge YouTube channel, so it's really great, and I'm excited for you. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I mean, you're probably like one of the only people that have seen it, so um, if you're a good barometer, then I hope people like it. I mean,
I really liked it, and it's I watched it again like once or twice in the last week, and yeah, and even like when I wasn't watching it, jokes would like things would remind me of your jokes. Like I was like putting moisturizer on, and I was thinking of your bit about people with good skin being inherently more ethical, and like
yes.
I'm like it's just so many things. Yeah, so I love the way you like talk about things. I think there's so much to get out of the special, and I know my viewers will like it. And so I was thrilled to connect, and yeah, I'm really so it's your first 60-minute special. I was almost surprised when I saw that. I was like, oh, I guess I don't really know how comedy works. Like, is that have you done
Yeah.
60-minute sets before, but not a special, or no?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of like, I mean, I kind of started headlining in 2019, which is like, you do comedy for like, I've been doing it 10 years now, and you kind of do comedy for a long enough time, and then you kind of eventually you'll have things to where you can get booked at a club on the road for a weekend by like your agent. So I'd been doing those, and then obviously the pandemic happened, and then I kind of was almost in a spot of like not wanting to do stand up again, and then unless I had like a focus, and then I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to try to put an hour together and make something. And then
Hmm.
All Things Comedy was cool enough. I had worked with them before on that Bill Burr set that I did on Comedy Central
Right.
a while ago, and yeah, they kind of like fronted the money for it, and yeah.
The production is really amazing. Like I know that's probably not like all your call. I don't know how much you decide. Do you decide like the green lights and the this type of shot or no?
Well, I kind of wanted it to look like Louis C.K. hilarious,
Oh,
like
okay.
there is like like where it was just kind of like one medium shot and kind of a wide, and so
Yeah.
there is one shot that is only used once, and that's like the back shot, and
When you're
that's like 3 minutes in.
when you're far away and seeing the whole crowd.
Not that
Oh,
it's
not
like
that shot.
it's
Okay, okay.
there's one from behind me, but it's like
Oh, okay.
so there was only there, and that we only had that shot on the first show, but I didn't want to use any of the first show because
Oh.
it's like all of the second show.
Hmm.
Um, so I mean, I don't know why I'm
No,
kind
that's
of
really
disjointed in
interesting.
bringing
Yeah,
that
and
up.
and I was gonna I am curious about all that type of stuff, but yeah, you don't have to
No,
talk
but for
about
the
yeah.
production things,
Yeah.
that was kind of my friend Marcus who directed it.
Hmm.
He was like, I kind of want to do green, and he thought green would look cool in there. And then my friend Matt Young, he's a DP in Vancouver where we shot it. He had the idea for the curtain because like that place doesn't have a back, and so yeah. And then we hired like an art person. I wish I could remember their name, but I really think we just hired them to get the curtain.
Nice.
And then Matt's idea were those lights
Okay.
on the shot that's coming from stage uh left, so from the right side where
Okay.
it's like those kind of like bright golden lights. That
Yeah,
was Matt's idea.
you see those a few times, and sometimes you're like right in between the two of them. It's very aesthetically pleasing and like nice to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's obviously I do really like how it's shot. I mean, I could get into like the nitpicky things of where I was like frustrated in like
Sure.
editing.
Sure.
But yeah, the idea for the lights and stuff, that was Marcus, and yeah, I kind of just wanted it intimate. I don't love like crowd shots in
Hmm.
specials. I find that then the like I get lost in I tried to film it, like I tried to do my set so that it was like for like the cameras.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So you don't want to focus on the audience that's literally there when it's not just about that audience, it's about a wider audience.
Yeah, it is about them, and I did like there were certain things in like sound that I was like pretty like adamant about. Like my friend Kevy did sound, and he's like a great sound engineer, and he's like does music and stuff, but like there's a weird thing in like stand-up sets or specials where they like when I'm talking they like numb the sound right down so
Hmm.
that it feels like it's cut off. And I know it kind of impossible to not do that a couple times because the room is so mic'd,
Yeah.
but I was pretty much like I need like room noise so that it doesn't feel strange and that it feels like when you're watching it you're kind of like there. That
Wow.
was kind of like my goal with everything is to feel like okay, you see that there's a crowd and you do see the crowd in a couple shots like from the back, but
Yeah.
it was just kind of to be like they're there and you're there while you're watching, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was going through for like the making a thumbnail for this stream, I was trying to get a shot with a few people in it, just kind of
Yeah,
give
yeah,
the
yeah.
vibe. And there were a few, but then I did notice there was like only one, like a really wide shot. I think only one. There might have been multiple. I don't know if I gave it a hard look, but yeah. How big was that crowd? I was curious. Was it a size crowd you like to perform to, especially, or?
So I did it at I shot it at the Biltmore
Oh,
Cabaret, which is like a small rock venue in Vancouver where I'm from. And yeah, it was like 200 people,
cool.
200 people each show. Um, First show kind of like was I feel like too many people I knew, so I just
Hmm.
like hated that set. I think I had like a meltdown after.
Hmm.
And by think I mean I definitely did. And
Hmm.
and then yeah, then the second show is like great, and so it was mostly that. So
Did you know some people at the second show, or no? I was kind of curious about that too.
um I'm
Like a
sure.
few,
I'm
yeah, but
sure.
it was not
I'm
like in
sure.
your head where you're
But there
thinking about
wasn't
it.
like
Yeah,
I didn't have like family at the late
yeah,
show, you know?
yeah. That's interesting.
It's also when you're like filming or there's like a taping of something, it's like there has to be so much more time in between. So it's like one show is at like 6:30 and the other show's at
Hmm.
9:30. So like the
Right.
time difference of like I mean just like vibe from somebody going out at 6:30 to compared to 9:30 is just like completely different.
Right. Right. Not people aren't as relaxed maybe, or they're not as like ready for a show, or I don't know.
At 6:30 I just think like, dinner was just happened
Yeah, they're
and like
digesting. Yeah.
yeah, it's like when you do like a club which like, there'll be like a show at like the early show and that's always bad, you know, because people like just got off work. I don't know. These are things comedians say.
Hey, I'm.
They'll all,
Yeah.
they'll also be like, "Oh, the Friday late show," and that's a bad show.
Because people are too wild maybe at that one. They're
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. I just
they're
usually think, yeah, well, like, a comedy club crowd is typically bad.
yeah. I
It's typically people who like could have just gone bowling, you know.
and maybe should have sometimes, but other times
A
they
hundred
get.
percent, 100% all the time.
What
I would just go bowling.
one of my like I don't watch a ton of stand up, but I've liked it for many years. And one of the specials I loved when I was younger was a Zach Galifianakis one where he's like live at the Purple Onion, I think it was, or something like that.
Hmm.
And you've seen that one, and it's like I'll never forget him saying to the audience like where do you get off coming here and expecting me to entertain you? And it's like he did it in a funny way, but it just expressed his spirit. I'm like, oh, I imagine so many comedians feel that way. It's like you get that they're there to be entertained, but at the same time you're like what do you all want from me? Like how dare you? I
Well,
don't know.
I'm not like I mean I completely understand that. I mean, and I mean I'm not like anybody like famous or anything, so I try to be like, as gracious with an audience as I can. And but sometimes there are that people there to see you, but at the same time that there are people there to see you, which you appreciate so much, there are also just like awful horrible people there.
And
And
they
there's
just
there's really
rolled
nothing
in.
you can do
Yeah.
about that. Like it's just like a mixed crowd. So I mean like sometimes you're just gonna have people that talk the whole time while you're like really trying.
Mm. The way you dealt with the heckler in the special is so funny, and really it made me laugh so hard, and the crowd loved it too. And it wasn't even a mean heckler too, it was like a nice heckler. But
It wasn't even anything, but
yeah.
it's crazy. The heckle was crazy, and I was like, I'm definitely keeping that in,
Right, they're like looking out for
it
you.
was like being funny off of my joke, and I was like, I'm not gonna like I'm not gonna like roast this person. Like this
Right.
is like insane. I was like trying to remember everything, and you're like,
Right.
that was the late show too, so you're like, oh, I really only have one more shot at this, and I felt like it was going good, and then yeah, I get that heckle like 15 minutes in, on like as I'm going into like darker material,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, I just have to settle this down and just like, because I know what I'm gonna say in the set, but that kind of like, in a way, and I do hate like a heckler, and I hate like a heckler video, and I hate like a what do you do for work, and then the person sitting there and they're like
Mm.
they say their job and the comedian makes fun of them,
Mm.
and then that person's like being like, okay, well, it's hard to find meaning in life. It's like I don't like those videos, and so I don't like being, and I don't like hecklers, but at the same time I feel like that did like take me out in a way, and kind of like I felt like after that I really like cruised like through the set in a fun way, where there's things I even like can remember riffing in the hour that like I weren't in the act, but it loosened me up.
Hmm. Yeah, I could imagine, and it loosened the crowd up too. And I think it was like the perfect type of heckle where the person was actually like trying to be nice in their own like twisted, like ridiculous way. Like just keep your mouth shut when you're at a show, obviously. But they were like, it was just the right type of heckle where, and then yeah, the way you responded was so funny. So the crowd, I think it was almost perfect for a heavier section of the set to lighten it up and people like see you kind of react naturally and can laugh along with you. Do you feel like sharing at all what was riffing, or is that interesting to talk about, or yeah, do you feel like sharing that, or is that fun to have that be not
Like,
too much
oh yeah, I mean
openly talk?
riffing is like improv,
No, I mean like within the set, or I just mean like
oh
yeah, is that fun to talk about, or is it a little bit weird, almost like too much detail to go into? Or...
uh, I mean, I guess people would have to kind of see what
Right, that's a
or
good
have
point.
seen
It's
it,
not out yet.
for me to be like, well, I said this thing that they haven't seen yet,
That's true.
Unfortunately,
That's
this
true.
is
This
like,
will be public for posterity, but that's true. And anyways, you had fun with it. You found times to be like, oh, I'm coming up with something new, and obviously that's a totally different feeling.
yeah, not even like, it's not even like sometimes when you're like riffing within like a structure of a thing, it's like it's not it's not even that you're like, oh, I'm coming up with something, but
Mm.
you're just like kind of like instinctually saying things that then you're that are just being funny, and you're just, I mean, being able to be like silly and just
Yeah.
like more yourself, because it is like, yeah, you're being you up there or whatever, but it is very hard to still like be a comedian as you're doing it. Does that make
Mm.
sense?
Right. There are different levels of how much you're being your actual self and how much you're putting on an act. I'm sure at each moment it shifts. It's like a percentage almost. It's to some.
Yeah, and I would
Yeah.
much rather be myself than be a comedian. And sometimes I'm doing comedy and I'm like, oh, I'm being a comedian right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that really pulls me out of it, because then I'm like, well, then why am I here?
Well, I do love part of what you're saying makes me think of just like the way you say things is really interesting. And maybe I should play, maybe this should be a good time for our first clip. I got some clips. I can pull up a clip if,
All right.
yeah. And I guess,
All right, yeah, play the clip, Jimmy.
I don't think you'll be able to, you won't be able to, you won't be able to hear it or anything actually, unless you have the live stream pulled up. So,
Okay, no, that's great.
okay, I'll tell you what it was. Okay, let's play a clip, and we will be partially visible, so don't do anything too weird on your camera. Okay,
Okay.
here's a clip. Let's watch this.
I have bad energy. I know that about myself. I have bad energy. Multiple times people have been like to me.
And is that coming through? Okay, let's check. Let's just make sure we got the audio right. Yeah, okay. All right, let's watch that one more time.
There's a week. And that's a hard joke for me to get through usually. It is. It's because I have bad energy. I have bad energy. I know that about myself. I have bad energy. Multiple times people have been like to me, I thought you hated me when we met. I did. I still do. Got transparent bad energy. You know, I'm toxic. I'm toxic. But I'm not masculine. I'm just regular. I'm just regular toxic.
And
My
hold on one
toxicity
second.
has no masculinity.
So that line made me laugh so hard. My toxicity has no masculinity. So that was the segment we were watching. So yeah. Somehow I should figure out how to make it so people I'm interviewing can also watch along. But
Yeah. So what was the whole clip?
so the clip was you saying that
I love to just be like waiting in like the nothingness for. I have no idea how many people are watching this. What the clip was.
Oh, well, I sent you the link before, so don't hesitate to follow along. But
no, it's cool.
But no, you're like you're saying you have bad energy, and you're saying you're toxic, and you're saying but yeah. So it was that clip. And I love that. I wanted to show it too because obviously I talk a little about toxic masculinity on my channel, or I did in the last video, and it's always a fun topic. And I hope I scared away some of the people on YouTube who get a little triggered by that concept. But how did you like going into like calling yourself toxic on stage? Like, what is that like for you? Is that sometimes more fun than other times? Or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's just. I mean, it's just funny. I just kind of like, I don't know, out of nowhere, unexpected, puts the audience on whatever edge. I mean, I feel like all that stuff is set up to get to the like, good skin a bit.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, those are all little lines that like I've had to like that I've built, that I've then taken and like been like, oh, this works here.
Yeah.
From like a technical aspect. But I mean, I also like believe that I am like toxic, and that I'm also that, not in like a traditional sense of how everybody talks about whatever toxicity in like media or like Twitter.
And it can mean so many different things. I mean, sometimes it means something way more significant. Sometimes it means, oh, I have some unhealthy this or that. But it is so fun to like shine a different light on the phrase toxic masculinity, and the audience has so much fun listening to you do it. You seem like you're having such a good time on stage. Would you say you were having fun like the whole set, most of it? I guess the second one is the one we saw, so you were having more fun that time.
I mean, I think I was having fun this whole special, and it is hard to kind of watch yourself or like kind of go back over a thing, but I do think that like the feeling that I have from it, which I remember, and like I can watch it and like kind of go back to that feeling, is that I was having fun, and at the end I was like, great,
Yeah.
whatever this turns into, I was like, great.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is so rare to like capture yourself having fun. I've taped sets before, like for Comedy Central, and I got to do Conan, and I didn't have fun on my Conan set, and like I can watch that and like see that. So it is such a rare thing, because it's rare for you to be like, in that kind of zone. So yeah, yeah, that's like a fun sequence that I wish I got to watch with everybody, but I didn't pull the thing up.
we have multiple more clips, so we'll make sure.
Okay, great.
They'll get pulled up. But yeah, I mean, it is really hard because obviously there's a lot of pressure. I mean, especially the camera's rolling and everything, and you're like, I got to nail this, and that's a real challenge. And I have a lot of respect for people that can like perform and have a good time and be like some amount of their genuine self, because I know it's a challenge. I mean, it's, you always feel like you're putting on a different voice, or you tend to feel that way, or I can certainly feel that way sometimes. So it's nice to just feel like, okay, like that's really genuine. Like that's where it's
Hmm.
come from. Even, it doesn't have to be the entire thing and so on. You talk about some heavy stuff, as we were saying, some really personal stuff. Have you always done that in your comedy? Is that something you've gotten into more? I guess it sounds like you said since like in like 2019, 2020, you sort of like renewed your interest a little bit in comedy. I don't know if that changed around that time or no.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was always kind of like, you're kind of doing comedy or stand up at least, um, for like a long amount of time to kind of find out, at least for me personally, like what you want to talk about, or like even like I started so young that it's like weird because you're kind of like figuring out who you are as you're like learning to talk about things. So, I mean, I started when I was 19 and like I kind of would like, have jokes about like puzzles or like objects or like things. I think the kind of the first joke I had it is on like my stand-up album Premature, which I did in 2017, was this joke about like this day job I was working at, and I was like an assistant, and I had to bring cookies into like a room with executives, and I like dropped a bunch of cookies, and it was just like that experience, and I
Hmm.
had that as a really long bit for a while. And my friend Deborah Giovanni, I'm name dropping, but just so people know that she's a
Yeah.
great comedian. But she was like, "Oh, that's probably," she would told me, and I remember that she was like, "Oh, that's like what your comedy is going to be like."
Huh.
And I was like, "Okay." So then I tried to really do stuff like that for a while, and and it and I was like, "Oh, that's not really who I am, but I like elements of it." And then I had this joke about like um that's in like my first ever Comedy Central set, that's like it's like about why I'm like anti-vax.
Hmm.
It was like an anti-vax bit, but because like we lived too long. But it was like pre kind of, it was way before COVID and everything.
Yeah.
And I was like, and there are silly elements to that joke, but I was like, oh, that's more like what I want to be talking about, kind of like
Hmm.
not to be like hot takes kind of guy, but like just like things that people have hot takes about that are really just like my whatever interest on that and spin on the typical like way people go with like a hot take, which is like,
Hmm.
a clickbaity thing, but
And is
which I
that
do think is like a popular style
and
of
that
comedy
sounds
that people do.
is that also shorter rather than longer stories? Does that correlate with like wanting to do shorter bits, or not exactly?
I don't know because I really love short bits. I have short bits in this one
Yeah.
that I really like I don't trust the government. That's why I never use the same signature twice. That bit, like the joke about like the I've never had money, because like I've never even had like every refrigerator I've had, it sounds like it's struggling to breathe. Like I like little like lines and silly lines, but I think that's like a combination of the two things. And I don't think I'm like so
Right.
sold on like one quick joke. I'm just like, or that I'm like, I don't like, I think I just like, I like to have little jokes in like bigger chunks. And I think like if you kind of like chunked this special out, there's like, you would see there's a lot of like themes within the chunks, but then I did find a way to like kind of tie them all together to where I think it at least feels um like a linear like narrative in a way,
It really does, and it really doesn't like feel like, oh, it's this section now, and now it's this section, and now we're on to the blank section, and so on.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, it really weaves together well, and to the point where like specific jokes stick with me, but then I also remember like the context, and I'm like, oh, how did we get here from there? But it kind of flowed really well. But that was an isolated joke, and so was this, and it's like, yeah, I don't know, they still kind of like will weave together really well. You must have a really good time like crafting and recrafting all that. I don't know. Like, do you do it on paper? Like, what do you do? How do you do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I write like on paper, and
Yeah.
like I try to just have everything on paper, and you try to write every day. But one thing that really helped me was my friend Uzzer Usman. He's a comedian and like writer and actor, and he's really talented, and he's like he came out when I was in Chicago Easter weekend 2022. I did Zanies and he came, and he's Muslim and it was Ramadan, and he like kind of like sacrificed his like night to kind of like come and watch
Hmm.
both shows, and he like just gave good notes and just kind of also like introduced me to this like long form like typing it on a computer,
Hmm.
um and kind of like you know putting subjects everywhere and like spacing it out in a way that like I hadn't really done previously, besides like cue card of this, cue card of this, like on a
Hmm.
wall.
Yeah.
And that was like really really helpful in like moving things around, like
Right.
um
Getting it
yeah.
spatially almost on the page in some way, bold or underlined or different things to kind of like help it stand in your memory, I imagine. Or
Yeah, I've
yeah.
always loved like reordering things, and I think that's like an art itself, like within like or within the craft of like stand up. But yeah, that definitely like kind of took that to a new level where you're like, sometimes you're doing a line with like even with the wrong joke.
Oh, interesting.
And yeah, where you're like, why is that line there? And oh, if I just move that there, like kind of like fitting it together. And I'd
Hmm.
never done like an hour like that, like a 60 minutes thing. So having those things to like lock it into place, and like just that like visual of like seeing everything and then also typing it out again instead of it was just like yeah, it
Right.
was kind of even for me, I was like, very helpful.
That's really interesting, and yeah, very cool to understand what that's like. And I didn't know about cue cards on the walls. I didn't know that was a thing, honestly. But
How
yeah,
people are like the little like space like if you have like a speech, those little
yeah,
like
yeah, for
those
sure.
things.
Yeah, it's reasonable. It makes sense that it would be a thing. I just now I'm in the
Yeah.
know. Um, so yeah, and I mean, so yeah, you kind of you mentioned like touring a lot, and I guess was that specifically getting together a special, or it sort of became about that at some point?
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I need to make money and I need to like, go on the road to do that. And I was like, I don't want to be doing this just to be going to Oklahoma,
Right,
So I was like, I
right,
need a goal,
something bigger.
and I need to like figure out how to line stuff up, and I can't just be going like every other weekend to go do some club. Like if I don't have a purpose, I'm not gonna like care.
Yeah.
So it was kind of that, but there was a lot of times where I was like, coming out of the pandemic, and I was like just kind of like worrying about how I was like gonna renew like my visa and stuff like that, where it was like not like fun. And I like had like there were times of that where like I was kind of like in over my head, like I didn't have a writing job at the time, and I just like didn't. I was just kind of like touring and like hoping I was gonna like make money
Hmm.
in somewhere, or like sell enough tickets somewhere and like set up my own shows. And like this one run I did during getting this ready with my friend Carlton, I went to Austin,
Hmm.
and that was great. And I have like people there. Like there are some cities I have people, and I'll go and people will come out, and I could like sell out like a small venue, like
Hmm.
and like just off my mailing list, like like an 80 seater
Right.
in Austin. I do this place Fallout. So we do two shows there, and then we go to like Asheville, in like North
Yeah.
Carolina, and we're like Booker's house. And oh my, one second, one
Yeah.
second.
Yeah. Take your time.
Um, is that still good? My
Yeah.
mic's still good.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds the same. Yeah.
And
Booker's
we're
house.
like, yeah, we stayed at the Booker's house, and like
Yeah.
we're sleeping on a bunk bed
Yeah.
together, and it's really bad. And then
Hmm.
but then the next show is like, and then the show was bad in Asheville, and then we go to like we go to Charlotte, and it's like an amazing like best show I've ever done, and like the coolest venue I've ever done. And you're just like, okay, but it's just like those ups and downs were like so much
Hmm.
that it was like I don't know if I ever want to do that again. I mean, I just feel like I did like a touring thing, like a kind of like a comic in the 90s does,
Hmm.
where they're like actual road dog, and I know some people like that still, but it's like I don't know. I don't know. Thinking about it, kind of like there's just moments from like doing like that many cities where you're like, I'm in Bloomington, Indiana on a Monday for like six people. You're
Mm-hmm.
like doing this like doing this hour, or like
Oh wow, doing a whole hour.
two
Yeah.
2 weeks before I taped, I like was like booked a last minute one because I like wanted more practice, and my and before like I went to Toronto to run it again,
Mm.
and then I went to like Providence, Rhode Island on a Wednesday, and it's
Mm.
like a great club, and like the guy who books it is great. And but then I was like, there was like 8 people.
Mm-hmm. Different experience, I'm sure.
I mean, it's just like, I mean, most of the time I was just like, what am I doing, you know?
You're like, this is
In terms of
memorization.
touring, yeah, it's just
Yeah, I mean, it really is an art. Like, comedy's obviously an art. And so when you try to make a living from an art, it's like a real challenge. I mean, it definitely is. Like, and I can imagine what it's like for you. Like, yeah, but it's very interesting to hear. And I guess,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it was just like, I mean, sometimes you get like a really good gig and you're like, oh, I'm great. But then
Hmm.
other times, you're like unsubscribing from subscriptions and emailing them and being like, hey, can I get a refund on, you know what I mean? You're like, can I get a refund on Squarespace? I have no idea why I have a website. I need that $30 back and now.
Speaking of money, you have a joke that relates to the amount that like studies show is needed to live a happy life, basically. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, do you update that joke if you've told it for a while to interest, or like as inflation takes place, like do you change the amount to a higher amount?
No, I literally don't do that anymore.
Okay,
So whatever it is in this
it's done. Yeah,
special, it's 85,000. I know that,
yeah, fair enough.
uh, and then that's kind of just the base of. So if that inflates, like that,
It's
we'll just stay with
it's
that.
permanent. I gotcha. Yeah, fair enough. Well, I'm curious. Like, yeah, I guess I'll play another clip. Is that maybe a good time? Do you want to pull it up and you can watch along? I'm gonna play a clip
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
of you talking about more intense mental health stuff. Because I think that's fun. So anyone watching, if you don't want to hear stuff about like heavy subjects, maybe go away for the next 10 minutes and then come back, or fast forward if you're watching in the future. But yeah, I want to watch a little clip from the special. I want to watch another clip. So this one's, yeah, about more heavy mental health subjects, and I kind of love how it's done. I think it's really interesting. So let me pull up that clip, and we'll watch another little clip, and I'll try to get it at a good volume. Let's see what we can do here. Let's see what we can do. Everyone say hey in the chat. If you haven't said hi yet, feel free to. You don't have to. It's fine if you don't want to. Um, and cool. So I'll play a clip here. Um, okay, sounds good. Let's get this going.
Yeah, I'm 28. I feel like I still have potential. That's why I think it's a good time to kill myself.
I'm gonna play that one more time, and I'm gonna do it on a slightly lower quality because your special is just such high quality footage that my computer, while I'm live streaming, is like, hey, take it easy, buddy. So let's play it in a slightly lower quality. Okay.
Yeah, I'm 28. I feel like I still have potential. That's why I think it's a good time to kill myself. Because you got to do it while you still have it. You wait too long, you don't have it anymore. 28, you kill yourself, people are like, no. He had big things coming. Potentially. Then you're 39, you kill yourself, people are like, he's a good guy. 39, that's a good enough time to get stuff done. And I know suicide is like a taboo topic, I know. It's taboo. It's taboo. They're like, don't talk about it. That's taboo.
Okay, I really had a hard time knowing like when to stop clips, and I'm not just saying that. So I think that's a testament to how funny you are and how interwoven the special is. Because I was like going through clips, and I'm like, okay, I can't make him sit here for 2 minutes while I play a clip. Um, so,
It's okay.
but so I mean, yeah. So talking about suicide on stage, I mean, what's that like for you? Is it ever tough, or do you? Yeah, because you also go into stuff that's like more real. This one's a little bit more abstract and like in some ways like a theoretical joke. You go into some stuff that's more real and personal for you. Is it ever tough talking about super intense like emotional stuff on stage, or not too bad? You have some like kind of distance there in a certain way, or
No, I mean some. I mean, obviously, sometimes. I mean, not everything's like a joke or supposed to be funny. Or I mean, I felt like this stuff just kind of like worked within like what I was talking about, like
hmm,
whatever the beginning of the special is like state of the world stuff, and then you kind of go into your own mind a bit. And
hmm,
yeah, no, yeah, there's really only one thing in that suicide chunk that I'm like, okay, I have to then give like whatever my experience instead of just being like someone who's like, yeah, I thought about it, you know?
hmm. Uh,
Um,
you said you felt like you had to give your own experience, or
yeah, otherwise I think those jokes are just like, um, it's almost unfair to then put on like an audience of people you don't know. Because my friend was like, okay, what are you trying to say? Like, talking about, suicide or like mental health or like, and he's like, what are you offering? And I was just like, I guess to me it was like the thing of like, I've also been there too, and like I'm there too, and like I've thought these things, and just kind of making it okay that way, and not kind of like being like everything's gonna be all right. I
right?
think it's just like, yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting. Yeah, I because I honestly didn't even think about that. That when you do share the personal side of your own experience with just like mental health, I didn't even really think about that. That it does kind of lend like credence to like, hey, like I'm not just talking about this to try to be edgy. Like I do get this on a real level, and like the joke that we just watched to me, yeah, I mean, it's like not the reason you're able to make me laugh at certain things I wouldn't otherwise, because it's not like you're making fun of suicide. Like you're making fun of attitudes about suicide, and like that's a big difference to me. So like you're making fun of like you're parodying. Anyways, I'm not going to explain your joke to you, but that's why it's funny to me, sort of, and it like works on a level that doesn't. There's no oh, why is he talking about suicide, or it's not like, oh, that's too intense, like don't go there. Obviously I'm a therapist, I don't want people to kill themselves, but yeah, it doesn't feel like you're making light of the thing itself, I guess, from my perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I even like the like obviously like I get a lot of stuff from like, or like reading things, and like and then how I feel about it, or like like forget what I was reading, but it was like they were talking about how like people say like life is a gift from God, and that's like the next joke in that
Mm.
sequence. So it's like um it's just like these things that we hear, and then yeah, I don't really know what I'm saying now, but
Well, you're sort of maybe giving your own perspective on stuff that doesn't feel like actually kind of reaching to,
yeah,
yeah.
I'm not like, I feel like don't, I know when I'm doing like talking about something and I am feeling forced, like I'm forcing myself to talk about it, and then I
Mm.
usually stop doing whatever jokes I've been trying to do a bit,
Hmm.
like even like recently I've had new jokes where I'm like, okay, I'm done with that.
Hmm.
Like I actually don't know why I'm saying it,
Hmm.
or it doesn't make me feel good to like get that joke off.
Yeah.
Um
Right.
and if I'm uncomfortable, then the audience must be uncomfortable.
Right.
But this I was like, I have to balance out like my thoughts on, like, one, it's like the first joke in the chunk is like I'm joking about suicide, and then the second part is like why people think it's not okay, and
Hmm.
why people get mad at the people who do it,
Right.
and then which I think is wrong, and that's why I
Right.
did the second part to back up me making the first joke. And then the third thing, which is like the supporting evidence, is my like own experience with it,
Hmm.
without being like, or not even experience, just like a moment of time,
Right.
like I don't,
You talk about some
was
struggles you had as a long time ago and so on, and you bring that into
yeah,
the
yeah,
conversation.
just
Yeah.
to be like, oh, that's always been there, and
And you
you
make
know,
it
people,
funny too at the same time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's good. And then it closes on like mental health stuff too, which
Right.
is like, you know,
Right. Do you ever feel that like tension rise talking about stuff like that in the room? Do you feel like people get anxious talking about it ever or no?
yeah, of course. And
Yeah.
then I'm like, but ultimately it's like funny, and like I actually don't really like. I mean, I've ultimately like cut all the jokes that I've done since taping it, you know.
Yeah.
But there are times where I'm like, I will do that joke again,
Hmm.
like antagonistically,
Hmm.
to like a bad, like an audience that doesn't like isn't vibing with me, and I don't
Hmm.
know why I do that, but I have brought that joke back to like upset people who then aren't liking like what I'm talking about now, and I think that's
Right.
wrong, and I think like whatever feeling I had when I taped this is like gone, and like
Hmm.
so I have done that joke like since then, and I'm just like yeah, I don't even.
Hmm, that's interesting. The meaning of the joke has sort of morphed to you, and like what you're doing when you tell it takes on a really different function than it did like around the time
Than
you.
it used to,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I'm
So
like so far past it that I'm like, it's repeating an old like opinion or thought that it's like,
right, and you've sort of decided I don't always love what that does in a situation, but then if you're in a situation where you don't care about that at all, you're like, fuck it, yeah, I definitely want this to come back out.
yeah, I feel like talking about that stuff is like for when the show is like about me, and most of this stand-up shows I do, it's like people's like trying to have a good time.
Hmm.
And then so like they're hearing that, and they think that I'm like bringing some sort of negativity. I even had a set
Hmm.
last night where like I was talking about like new stuff, and like the room got really weird, and then the person who was hosting at this club was like weird to me about it, and it just doesn't feel like I had space to kind of talk about what I talk about like on any show. But like this was
Hmm.
a time where it was like, oh, it was my space, so I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yes, yes, because it was everyone's there. They obviously know you're recording a special. It's like, yeah, go into that stuff, talk more about your perspective, talk more from like you as a person, your sort of internal life, things about yourself, like how you feel. It kind of just feels more within the ballpark of like what you can talk about if then
Mm,
maybe if you're like yeah, just kind of yeah, not feeling super at home in the space, or it's like you're just kind of passing through, or it's not as much of a settled
totally.
spot, or something like that. I can imagine, but fair enough. And you do some edgy jokes, I guess. Is that a fair word to use? Would you ever say that some of your jokes have an edge to them? They're you make a joke where you say you're okay with women being paid less, and then you go on to explain they have less work experience as a gender. Like makes me laugh so hard. Do you see it as edgy? Not edgy? Is it just a stupid word to use nowadays?
I again, that is a chunk of the thing where I'm like, I don't know if I would say that any of that now. I think like I don't think it's like so edgy what I'm saying, because I'm like mocking the people in my head that like
Right.
actually think those things,
Right.
like, which I mean it brings up a different discussion if like I can be making those jokes as a man, obviously, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'm just like, I think I was making fun of that idea, like it's like so absurd, like that entire money chunk, which I feel like I was just kind of like that whole section. I wish I had like more time to like,
Interesting.
sit on, or like let it grow.
Yeah,
um
I could understand, and but it really does land for me, and I get that there is definitely a point. I've heard people say joking, I don't know, like joking misogyny is still misogyny. I would I think everyone has a right to an opinion on how that makes them feel and how a joke on that subject makes them feel, and it's a discussion, it's comedy, it's art. Like people are meant to kind of subjectively interpret it. To me, it 100% lands because it just Yeah, it's like absurd. It's just absurd. It does, like it does not meant to be taken as like a comment about like people.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff in the special that's absurd. There's an entire like anti-war bit
right.
where it's just like,
The Navy stuff and like the
yes,
yeah
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, if there's no clip, I mean, it makes no sense for the
we
context of
won't
other
we won't go
people
too
in
much
there.
into it, but it leads to me wanting to ask a little bit about influences because we were talking about that before we went live, and we were talking about Chris Law. I was about to bring up Chris Law, Chris James. And I found out about you through Chris James, who does the Not Even a Show, and you were involved in it right from the beginning, and then on the podcast on their Patreon, which is really funny, and you're on a ton of episodes, and they're super fun. Um, and I also found out through Chris James of Chris Locke. I don't know if you know each other, or are you
I
yeah,
know Chris
okay,
Lock.
you are
Yeah,
friends,
yeah.
okay, yeah. Do you you were telling me you view Chris James as a really big influence. I can definitely see like I don't know. I love both of your comedies, so it makes sense to me. Do you feel inspired by Chris Locke's comedy? Definitely, some of your stuff feels like like a different style of absurdity than him, but like a similar extent. I don't know if that's fair to say or something. Like it's almost like his absurdity is in his stories sometimes. Yours is almost in like perspectives or opinions was kind of how I felt a little bit. But yeah, how do you feel? Do you get inspired by Chris Rock's comedy as well? Or
I mean, those are two people I love, very much. I mean, we were talking before, and I was saying that like when I started stand-up comedy, as a young man, it was Chris was kind of like one of the guys, or
yeah, in
one of the
Vancouver.
people in Vancouver,
Yeah.
and so I kind of clung to him, and he kind of like was like there for me a lot, like not just in like a hanging out kind of
Yeah.
like uh comedian way. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I did a lot of shows with him. We never like really wrote together or
Hmm.
anything, but we would joke around a lot. And I feel like a lot of my style is kind of like built off of like um him, really. I mean, people will be like, they give like they throw out other things. I mean, Chris Locke is definitely a person who I saw and was like, oh, I wish I could do that.
Hmm.
But I feel like so much more like reserved than him. There's like a weird kind of
Hmm.
freedom that he has that I don't think I have.
Interesting. Yeah, and
Um,
you kind of have to be yourself. Obviously, when you're doing stand up, you have to do something that works for you.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sure I've had so many stages or whatever of like being goofy to not or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Fair enough. Yeah. What?
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, for Chris, I mean, like, I don't know. It's just like could see that in terms of like little things that he kind of like hyper focuses on. It's all
Hmm.
kind of everybody's always kind of the same, so it's like
It's great. And one I was curious like when there were times when I heard you on the NEAS podcast and I was like I don't really like what does this guy think about the issue he's joking about? Like there were times I was really like I'm not like I assume that you are like in agreement with me, but like there were times where I was like, wait, is do I agree with this guy? Like, what does he mean? And do you feel like sometimes you've left it more mysterious, like what you actually think, versus other times you're more upfront about it? Or yeah,
think about. I mean, I'm a socialist. I don't.
no, no, no,
I'm
no, totally. And it's just like you would make jokes about unions, you'd make jokes about like this or that, and you would intentionally. It's comedy, it's funny, but like it walks that line where I wonder if some people ever do you ever have fans like not know like actually like think have different opinions or think your politics are different or stuff like that.
I think that like everybody that sees me, I mean, especially now, probably definitely knows where I align, and I mean, I'm not like too political or whatever
Right.
online. I obviously do post things where I'm like, you know, I whatever I mean, I don't know what I want to
Yeah,
say
yeah,
here.
yeah. Like you express your opinion, and like in your comedy, it's like
Yeah.
you talk about a lot of like subjects that are political. That's different than giving your political opinion. So I just wonder if people like if you've ever had
Well,
a.
I was about to be like, well, I'm like pro Palestine. Like I've
That's
been
fine.
posting that
Yeah,
this
yeah,
week,
for
and then
sure. Yeah,
having like
yeah,
conversations with people. So like,
yeah.
I don't know if I feel strongly about something, I kind of post that, or like, I mean, I know that's like kind of like a popular thing
Sure,
at
sure.
the moment in
Yeah,
our news cycle,
sure.
obviously. So I'm like, I'm pretty like clear about like where I stand on things. I'm not like, I know a lot of like comedians, and while I'm not like wealthy or famous, I kind of have the freedom to kind of like say my actual beliefs,
Hmm.
because not that you can't do that once you're famous or have money.
Hmm.
It's just I think people protect that, and
Hmm.
also I think people stop having the right opinion, because then
Right.
they're in a different like tax bracket than everybody. So then why would they care about labor movements in the United States, or like socialist movements, or whatever,
It can be a
so
problem. Yeah, people need to be incentivized sometimes for their political opinions.
yeah, so like I don't know. So I guess this ties back into like any joke I think I've ever made has like, especially with Chris on any not even a show. I think it was more just to be like the complete opposite
Yeah,
uh voice of him, and to like make him laugh, I
yeah.
mean, I know that we had like there was not even a show, if you don't know. It's like we would prank call like political kind of right-wing people and antagonize them by making them believe that we are on their side, and then you just kind of do a flip of the switch. So like an example of that, which I don't think this episode is online anymore,
Hmm.
is I don't even know if I want to say
You don't
what this
don't
prank
feel that you
call was.
have to. Yeah, don't feel that.
But it's just like whatever. It's just like, when people were getting mad about people were getting mad about like, I don't know, trans people in the army,
Hmm. Mm.
and you call in and you pretend to be on their side, and then you flip it because we're actually, yeah, it's the army. Who cares who's in the army? Who cares if a trans person's in the army? Ultimately, if you're joining the army, you're doing something evil. So it doesn't matter who's in it. But so I don't know, that didn't really go anywhere because I do not want to give the
That's
example that I was
totally
thinking
fine.
of.
That's totally. But there's probably a reason. I know some of those episodes had to get taken down. People give you a hard
Yeah.
time when you give them a hard time. Yeah, I'd never when I found Not Even a Show, I had never seen that type of prank call. Like I was pretty into prank calls, like growing up and stuff. I'd never seen a prank
Mhm.
call that was based around being on the person's side and then like humiliating them from that angle. It's like
Yeah.
really a perfect way to do it.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's not even like gotcha journalism. It's just like, you've kind of seen it more. Like I've seen a lot of it this week where it's like you're kind of explaining things how those people believe them to be, and
Hmm.
then you poke a major hole in it, and then they agree with the hole, and then you kind of expose them. So
Hmm.
I don't know, it is nice. I mean, it did. I mean, I had to move away, so I had to stop doing Not Even a Show. But
Hmm.
yeah, those beginnings of that were very fun.
It's very cool, and I'm so glad it's still going on. And yeah, it's a very cool thing to have done. And you've done a short film. I'm glad. I almost forgot to mention this. You have a great short film on your page.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I watched it a while ago, and I loved it. And um, do you plan to do more short films? Do you have ideas? Not
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I write, and
yeah.
I had like a movie project in development
Hmm.
last year that I think is probably completely dead, but I continue to like write and try to
Yeah.
create stuff. But that was the first short film I did, and we shot that in like a day,
Hmm.
um with really no money, but we did it in one day. So
Looks
and that was
great.
kind of my first foray into that. And but I, having always wanted to like make things and act and write, so
Right. I
it does
almost
feel like
yeah. Please. Yeah.
it does feel like it came super late, the like need to like actually do that, whereas like you see people who like start a YouTube channel at like 15 who are my age and are now get to make stuff, and I
Hmm.
don't know, I never had a camera like growing up.
Yeah.
and there's no like home videos of me, so so I
Yeah.
always thought that there was like a correlation between like people that got really successful and like the amount of home videos that they had of them.
That's definitely a reasonable take because you feel like a performer. You're like, I want to do this myself. I'll hold the camera. But
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
What made you get into comedy? So you're 29 now, and
yeah.
and you got into it when you're
29.
19. What made you get into it? Anything in particular, or yeah?
Yeah, I was going just to this, like, I was in a 1 year film school program that was like writing for, yeah, writing and TV production.
Hmm.
And, yeah, some people were just going to an open mic and I just went with them. And
Nice.
that's pretty much that at Goldie's Pizza in Vancouver.
Did you have jokes written already, or
Yeah, I
yeah,
wrote some
you had a
jokes
few?
that,
Yeah.
very 19-year-old,
Yeah.
um, which just means bad, but
Yeah.
the excuse is the age.
Uh,
But yeah, I wrote jokes and then, did them and was all probably 1,000% different than I do comedy now
Totally.
in
Yeah.
terms of what I wanted to do.
It's very cool. And then I guess, I mean, did you have a good time your first time, or was it more like just kind of, oh, I could do this more? Or
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think I had a good time.
yeah,
I think I had a good time I've had a good time the whole time I've been doing it.
nice. That's great to hear.
Yeah, I mean, obviously there are lows, but I think I liked it from the start enough to kind of, be like, oh, I'm gonna keep doing this,
Yeah, and
and then yeah, and
here we
then
are.
here we are.
And yeah, are you? Do you have? Yeah, are you working on sort of a few different projects at the moment? I mean, it must feel so good to like get this out. Or how does it feel to? Before we get to other projects, how does it feel to like have the special coming out in 1 week? Um, what is that
I
like for
mean,
you? Yeah.
I mean, it's a terrible time to do self promotion, and I really have to get out of my head about that. I really do not want to be like posting my comedy online right now.
Hmm.
And I don't know, but I think whatever was happening anywhere, I would feel that way,
Yeah.
and I would feel selfish. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm super happy this is coming out. I mean, I wanted it to be out a year ago,
Yeah. Wow.
so I do feel like I've been in like limbo, like since I shot this, in terms of like moving on from it, or people seeing this, or this possibly being something that helps my career,
Yeah.
which hate to think of it that way,
No,
but
what's
either
wrong with
way,
that?
I'm like, even if it doesn't, I'm like, I you know I did it, and I don't it's crazy.
Well,
So even though
yeah.
it's on YouTube, I'm like, I still did it. And yeah.
It's great, and yeah, I mean, I can imagine just like finally kind of letting go of it and like getting the response from people. It's such a big part of the art process.
Yes,
Yeah,
totally. I mean, yeah, there just hasn't been that release, which I would love to just kind of like exhale and like move on. Um, but yeah, um I hope it's like well received.
I would be
You know.
shocked if it's not, and I know a lot of your fans and your viewers are going to be looking forward to it. Hopefully, my viewers check it out. But yeah, I don't know much about the comedy business, but it was hilarious, and I hope lots of people see it and share it and give you all kinds of new opportunities. I meant to ask, so you've done some acting too, right? I remember you talking about that on the NEAS podcast. Do you you've done a bit of it.
Yeah.
Do you still, is that part of
Yeah.
your life regularly, or is that just kind of a brief thing, or?
No, I mean, it's not a brief thing.
Okay,
It
I
kind
wasn't
of
sure how much of it, because you're sorry to interrupt you in the middle of beginning to answer my question,
no, 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 no,
but
no.
in your comedy, it's clear that you have acting skills, and I'm not really comparing you to this person, but a similar person that gave me that vibe, Maria Bamford. Like when I've seen her do comedy, it's clear she's a very talented actor, and so I don't know. There are times where you have these subtle nuances of how you express yourself. So it just made me think, oh, I wonder if like if you're looking for roles, if you're doing TV or
Oh,
movies or
that's
other
really
stuff.
nice.
Yeah.
I did the show Butterboy a couple weeks ago,
Hmm.
and it's a really popular show in Brooklyn, where I live. and yeah, Maria was just there in the audience hanging out,
Oh, are
and
you serious?
she just like sat and watched, and I've met her before a couple times, and
Wow, that's a
never
coincidence.
like formally like whatever, but I was so nervous because I knew she was sitting in the crowd, and I do love Maria a lot, so that's very nice.
Oh,
But
wow.
to answer your question,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, I want to do stuff like I want to act and stuff seriously.
nice.
Um, you know, manifest that. But
And
yeah, I
and
mean, I auditioned
seriously,
so much.
like actual
Yeah,
serious like drama. You enjoyed dramatic acting as well as
yeah,
comedy
none of
acting.
this
Yeah.
unserious stuff. I
No,
want to
I'm
do
no, I
this.
mean no, I mean drama versus comedy. Do you have a preference, or are you just whatever you're into it all?
No, I just want to do
Yeah,
something cool
yeah.
and respectable and yeah, I mean, I guess I would like also in that same I would sell out for sure. Like
Sure.
I would definitely do a Fox sitcom, you know. I would love that
Well,
deeply.
Fox
And
watches my channel, so you should be that should be good because yeah.
oh, Fox
Oh,
News.
Fox
Yeah.
News, Fox everything, Fox Business,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's great.
So
Well,
keep
no,
your
I
phone
just
on.
like yeah, I want to do stuff. I mean, I don't know what those things are, but I haven't necessarily had those opportunities in front of me.
Yeah,
Or the things I've been close on weren't really for me in hindsight. So,
fair enough. Yeah, and I know you've done yeah for several different roles with acting, and it sounds like you're still doing it. That's super dope.
yeah,
Um,
I'm still in like the customer service of like acting roles. Like
hmm.
feel like when you're kind of starting out, you do like I mean, I don't really have like trained experience, you know? So the things I've done on TV have been like barista,
Hmm.
a cop, I work at a clothes retail, you know?
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess if you could play one role on in something, what would you want it to be?
I don't know. Like
President
this,
or?
no, not president, but I think I could do good at that. I could do good at that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, what would I want to be? I feel like I used to have a good answer for this, but I don't know. Like the third lead.
Yeah. Yeah. You
I think I could be a great third lead.
bounce off the two first leads. Absolutely.
A lot of people want to be the star, but not me. I want to be the guy in the second season. I get a solo episode.
And it's like a totally different experience. Speaking of shows, can I ask what's your takes on Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul? I don't know.
Hell yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, Better Call Saul is my favorite show ever. Like
Woo! I agree.
yeah, it's definitely my favorite show in the entire in the whole world of
Wow,
existence.
I completely agree. And I was thinking, I mean, I know I talk about this in my videos, but I was literally thinking about it yesterday, and today it just pops into my head all the time.
I mean, I love Better Call Saul and like I mean like tonally and just like as like a person who wants to be like or tries to be very introspective and like
Hmm.
I think that is show with writing that like really shows like the nuances of people and I just
Hmm.
yeah, I miss it a lot.
Yeah.
I miss it a lot. I made my friend Jackie watch it, and she like was like she had never watched it, and like recently, and she was like, "I have 2 episodes left. I don't
Wow.
know what I'm gonna do."
Wow. Oh my gosh. I wish I could go back to when I had the last two episodes
Yeah,
left.
don't you? And I know you watched Breaking Bad after,
Yeah.
and you know I had seen Breaking Bad at the time, and then I kind of got onto Vince Gilligan then, and even when I was in that program I was in, I went and saw him. I went and watched him talk about
Hmm.
Breaking Bad and his favorite episodes. You know,
Hmm.
the one where Gus gets exploded. That's
Ah.
and and yeah, and I was always a big fan, but after finishing Breaking Bad, I tried to then rewatch, or after finishing
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Better Call Saul, I then tried to rewatch Breaking Bad, and I just like didn't like it. Like it was too angry, and
Right.
there's like a lot of like weird kind of like like war on terror written into it, where it was like
Hmm.
it's very like every character is very mad at the world and everybody, whereas
Yeah.
like Better Call Saul, although like darker, it is like more hopeful, and I like that element of it a lot.
Yeah, it does have that, and I think there's some like more truth to that. I don't know. There's something that feels like true to me about like presenting a view of life as something you can have hope in, because a lot of people do live that way and don't. I personally had a hard time with Breaking Bad because it was so intensely, violently like presenting a world where I just like would never want to live. It didn't feel like my actual world in
I
any
mean, it
way.
was just so intense, and also I'm like, he didn't have to do any of that, and I
Yeah.
still can't justify like that he did any like he literally has an out in the first season where he doesn't have to do that. I'm like, I just can't understand that choice as like a person. Like, whereas like
Right.
I can understand all of, Jimmy's choices
Yeah.
and put myself in his shoes, and I can be like, I would have done the same thing and I would have held on to this the same way. Whereas like, Walter, I don't understand him as a character, and I don't think he's sympathetic.
No, I don't either. And yeah, I can understand so much better, Jimmy. And I'll tell you, I mean, you're probably not surprised, but I get comments almost every day from people like who are like, "You're totally misunderstanding Breaking Bad. Like Walter had to do this. Like he had his pride. Like don't you understand?" And I'm like, "No, I don't.
What is that? I don't understand, because I don't understand
I
pride,
don't
because
understand pride either."
I don't understand pride. I literally have none.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I think it's like I think it's weak to not ask for help
right.
and not accept help. I think is even like a weaker thing.
Right.
And like I have been the person that has like refused help, and I never feel good after.
Mm.
And I'm just like, so I just can't even like see that choice of him being able to not have to like hurt people and then still take it.
Mhm.
It's just so, I don't know, it's so like narcissistic, which I just like do not. Yeah.
It's definitely something, and I get that it's TV and people comment, "Hey man, like we don't like him always, like we just think it's cool." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think it's cool. I'm sorry. Like I don't think it's cool."
Yeah, because I'm like, he is like, to me, like not the worst part of that show
Yeah, I
was him
agree.
and his family. You know what I mean? Like all of them, I'm just like, the show would be so much better if it was just they weren't in it and it was like Jesse's story,
Mm.
because he at least has like a redemption arc, and he's like a person who like makes mistakes and like feels things.
Mhm. Jesse and Marie. I need Marie in there. She cracked me up. I found her so funny for some
Yeah, I
reason.
know, but I am also weirdly of the team where like I just like found that like Skylar was like written so horribly, to where it seems like Vince and whatever team like really figured out how to, and I think they probably just had more women in the room when they were writing Better
For
Call
Better Call
Saul.
Saul, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you like look back and watch that, you're like, this sounds like a bunch of guys like writing a wife.
Oh yeah, no, I feel that, like, obviously a lot of the fans will be like, fuck Skylar and stuff like that, but on the level of just critiquing the writing of Skylar, I do get that, and it's hard not to blame the show at all for the effects of it and like the way
Of
people
course,
have
because you're
interpreted
like,
it.
she
Yeah,
is just reading the lines,
yeah,
and those are the lines, and that's how her character is written. And I'm like, I can remove myself from the show and be like, why don't I like that?
mm-hmm,
And it's because, oh, I don't like the writing, so then it's making me not like her because she's not written well. You know what I
mm-hmm,
mean?
yeah,
But people connect the person to them saying the line. It doesn't make any sense. It's like when someone's like, when you're like, ooh, I hate them, like like
right,
typically I'm like, oh, they're doing like a good job then, because
right,
I'm supposed to hate them.
right.
So she is doing a good job, but I just don't like how she was like written.
Right. And it's almost like in that story, like, why should you have negative, or like, why should you hate or like really like not want Skylar to succeed? I don't know. Like, it's just kind of hard to know. I guess you don't really root for anyone after like the first two seasons.
It doesn't make any sense, because at
Yeah.
least Skylar was like in like whatever terms of like Breaking Bad is like, it's like ride or die. You know what I mean?
Right.
She like, how many people would be like, okay, I'll help you sell meth. Like,
Right.
it's literally so nice, and she reached out so many times, but he didn't accept the help again because he's like weak and he can't accept
Right.
help.
Right.
So
Yeah,
so yeah, I could talk about this.
I know
talk
it's
about this.
interesting, and I hope you get some of the annoying Breaking Bad fans now to your YouTube channel to give you a hard
Yeah.
time. Well, I don't know. I don't want to take up too much of your time. This is so great. So are you? Yeah, after this special, you're hoping to have any projects you're coming down the pike for you, or pipe? I don't know how that expression goes.
Yeah, I wrote a movie for that is at Columbia with this guy, a writer Andrew Barbett, and that I think that project is dead. So we're kind of working on another thing right now
Okay.
that we've been writing for like a year, and
Very cool.
yeah, trying to like write my own show that I was hoping to have a kind of pilot done before this came out.
Wow.
But yeah, I didn't really get that done. So, you know,
Yeah, well, that's
mm,
really exciting. Your own show. I'd love to see what that's like when that does come out. Or,
or well, that I was just writing in terms. That's not anywhere, but
no, I
that's
know, but
just
I wonder what that would be like. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, me too. I wonder what that would be like.
And before I let you go, any good puzzles lately? Are you still into puzzles? I know, you're well known as a comedian, but you're also pretty well known as a puzzler. So I just wanted to ask about that.
Yeah, no, I would say I have fallen off that whole the puzzles. It's hard to
Mm-hmm.
keep up. Did a
Yeah.
couple during pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but haven't done some lately. But sometimes people used to bring me puzzles to shows.
Wow. That's
So
really great. That's like an interesting gift too. And like sentimentally, you're like, that's so nice. And also you're like, what do I do with this?
how do I get this home? Is what I'm thinking.
That's
But
great.
no, what am I doing now? I'm just like reading and watching stuff and playing Zelda, which I guess
Oh,
is a puzzle.
that
So
it is. Yeah. What you reading, if you don't mind me asking, or yeah,
I
anything.
just finished Stay True
Hmm.
by Hua Su, I think his last name is.
Oh,
I could be butchering
sure,
the
sure.
Taiwanese of it all, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a memoir that I really liked.
Wow.
Kind of about friendship. Yeah, beautiful book.
Wow. Interesting.
And yeah.
That's cool. I've been reading a lot of biographies. I've been really enjoying reading about people's lives. So a memoir would be interesting too. I do like kind of getting like another person's take on someone's life. Is also I've found that really interesting lately. But
Yeah, this
yeah.
is more just like emotional, like I don't know, you're kind of just like sitting with somebody's like thoughts about the past. There's another
Hmm.
memoir that I read this year called The Years
Hmm.
by Annie Ernaux. She's a French writer,
Cool.
and that was recently translated to English, and it's a similar it's kind of like a memory, like it's like you're
Hmm.
kind of like a the narrative is kind of like just all through memory, so it is kind
Hmm.
of like distorted, the writing, but I am kind of into books like that right now, so that's the kind of book I'm reading.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's really interesting. And yeah, I guess that's the big difference between a memoir and a biography. You're getting just that first person. It's so internal, and you get so many people's
Hmm.
thoughts and feelings. And well, fascinating stuff, Gavin. And I'm so glad you came on the channel for a chat. This has been so much fun.
Yeah.
It's great talking with you. And I hope for the best in all your comedy stuff and etc. And yeah, great to talk with you. I've had a great time.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks so much. And if anybody is watching this, yeah, specials out on Friday, and can follow me on Instagram. There'll be a link, and I'll send a link to what's here.
Yeah.
And
Send me that link, and then in the description, y'all can check out the link to Gavin's YouTube channel and All Things Comedy's YouTube channel. And yeah, October 27th, it'll be live forever, right?